Thank you very much for an introduction and also for an invitation to this amazing event. And I would also like to thank to Jordan Avramov, who invited me to join this panel. Thank you, Jordan. Today, I'm going to talk not only about correspondence, which obviously used paper as its medium, but I will also attempt to trace other papers that accompanied letters of one of the most intriguing scholars of the 17th century. So let me introduce the main actor shortly. The Jesuit polymath Athanasius Kircher lived most of his life in Rome, where he anchored himself as a fugitive of the 30 Years' War in 1633. Over the course of his life, he wrote more than 30 voluminous works, ran a famous museum, restored ruined temples, deciphered hieroglyphics, built a sundial, created a coded language, and among others, sought a universal knowledge. At the same time, because of his grounding in the Jesuit order, he created what was probably the first truly global scholarly correspondence network, reaching as far as China or South America. With nearly 2,700 surviving letters, the correspondence was comparable to that of Marin Mersenne, Jean-Claude Fabre-de-Peyresque, Samuel Hartlib, or Henry Oldenburg. Kircher, with the help of correspondence, organized international astronomical observations or measurements of magnetic declination. At the same time, he saw his correspondence not only as a tool to gather information and disseminate his works, but as an artifact in itself, which was on display in his museum, bound in 12 volumes. From the letters survived, most of it is a received correspondence, which is held by most of it is held by the archive of the Gregorian University in Rome. It is interesting that in the early days of his Roman career, the Czech lands played a key role in his correspondence. In this paper, I want to focus on the ways of paper communication between Kircher and his Czech lands correspondence. That is, not only how the letters traveled between them, but also the bills, books, recommendations, or the still undeciphered Voynich manuscript. Let's have a look at what most probably caused that the Czech lands made such a mark on the map of Kircher's correspondence network. His correspondence network, as you can see, is clearly centered around Central Europe and Italy. It seems that Kircher, on the one hand, tried to gain support of patrons in the Habsburg monarchy, and on the other, to establish himself in his new home, Italy. Kircher's frequent yearly contacts with correspondents from the Habsburg monarchy and the Czech lands in particular were determined by many factors. The major one was Bohemian revolt, which ended in defeat at the Battle of White Mountain in November 1620, and which started a 30 Years' War. Whereas at the beginning of the Estates Uprising in 1618, the Jesuits were expelled from the Czech lands. After its end in 1621, they returned and took over positions of Protestant professors at the university. A country that was previously multi-confessional became exclusively Catholic, and all non-Catholics had to either convert or to leave the country by 1627-28. As the number of Jesuits in the country was rather low at the moment, the provincial Georg Kramer asked the Jesuit general Muzio Vitelleschi to send reinforcement from abroad in 1625. And it were these newcomers from Spain, Italy, Upper German province, and southern Netherlands, with whom Kircher made his first contacts in Bohemia, and with whom he corresponded throughout his life. It was surely easier for Kircher, who was himself a newcomer to Rome, to make contact in an environment that was full of immigrants. However, Jesuits were not the only yearly correspondents of Kircher in Bohemia. They were joined by others, Whether it was one of the Kircher's most frequent correspondents, the physician and later rector of the Prague University, Johannes Marcus Marci, with whom he corresponded for the rest of his life, or in Staganography interested Burgrave of Bohemia, Bernard Ignaz Martinitz, who was himself raised by Jesuits, as well as the Cardinal and Archbishop of Prague, Ernst Adalbert von Harrach, and his nephew, Johann Friedrich von Waldstein, who dined with Kircher in Rome. In total, Kircher received 169 letters from 37 correspondents from the Czech lands in general. The community of Kircher's correspondents from the Czech lands was tied by personal contacts, and most of them knew each other personally. Moreover, many of Kircher's noble correspondents had met him in person in Rome. Visiting Athanasius Kircher in his celebrated museum became essentially a necessary stop on any grand tour. And so, while the original distance between Prague and Rome seems considerable, it turns out that ultimately Kircher's relations with his correspondents were shaped in the same way or even more intensely by personal relationships. Thus, the path of letters, gifts, books, bills, and more cannot be separated from the path of persons and their relationships. In the next part, I would like to talk about who carried the letters between Prague and Rome. It seems that Kircher's Jesuit correspondents from the Czech lands mainly used Jesuit resources for sending their letters. Non-Jesuit correspondents, however, used random and regular passengers to Rome or messengers. The letters of recommendations were logically carried by those recommended to Kircher. Using messengers, however, had some drawbacks. Apparently, Johannes Marcus Marci had a very reliable one. Unfortunately, this messenger died, as he mentions in one letter, and Marci had to find other ways how to send and receive not only letters, but above all, books from and to Kircher, and he sends a Carmelite monk with the next letter to pay for Kircher's books and bring them back. The consul from Brno, Christian Augustin Flader, complains in his letter that his messenger squandered money entrusted to him. Marci prevented such unpleasantness by depositing his money directly in Rome with a certain Father Keller, who then paid for the books Marci had ordered from Kircher. Or, of course, he sent bills for the education of his son, Johann Georg, in Rome. At other times, he used a trusted messenger, like the Duchess of Thun, with whom he had no need to fear embezzlement. The Wroclaw physician and publisher of the first medical journal, Miscellanea Curiosa Sive Ephemerides, Philipp Jakob Sachs von Löwenheim, sent his letters from Wroclaw, along with the first editions of the journal. Through several different individuals, the canon of the Wroclaw chapter, an agent of Cardinal Friedrich von Hesse-Darmstadt in Vienna, and Georg Sebastian Jung, a physician in Vienna. Sachs explicitly mentions in the letter that an excellent opportunity has arisen for the two canons to be dispatched to Rome after the election of the new archbishop to bring the confirmation of the election. Sachs is offering to send Kircher an issue of Ephemerides after them. It was an avid collector of Kircher's books, Ferdinand Johann von Liechtenstein, who complained about the Jesuits as messenger and begged Kircher not to send the books through his fellow brothers because they were always late. He should better send them through the merchants, as he writes, that he will be happy to pay for the trip. He even sent Kircher a list of books he didn't yet have from him to complete. In a letter to the Brno Council, Christian Augustin Flader, who complained so much about the rogue messenger, Kircher sends a catalogue of his published works and says that if Father Saxius, the provincial of Bohemian province, goes with the letter, he will send him 2 of his books as a sign of a goodwill. In this case, the Jesuit messenger was much more than what could flutter wish for. The list of Kircher's planned as well as published works strengthened the network and function as a promise of future contact, and further gifts as they raised the expectation and motivated to further correspondence and exchange. Kircher periodically throughout his life published Elenchus Librorum, similar to the one he sent to Flader. Such list can be found printed in Kircher's books. Also, he sent them to his correspondents in manuscript. It was Augustin Flader or the Jesuit Lodewijk Kras who acted as the distributors of Kircher's books in the Czech lands, and they received such a list of books from Kircher. But it wasn't just books that Kircher and his correspondents from the Czech lands were exchanging. Even more precious was the exchange of manuscripts with a rare or unusual content or form. Steganography, or the art of coding, was at the beginning and at the end of Kircher's Czech lands correspondence. While he exchanged letters in code with Bernard Ignác Martinec in early 1640s as a part of a friendly exercise in this art, his friend Marci sent him a manuscript of much more weighty concern, encrypted letters of Swedish Field Marshal Johan Banner, as Marci writes in his letter. If they could be read, many misfortunes would surely be averted. In vain, Marci and others tried. How Marci blamed himself for not learning this art from Kircher, since he believed that with this knowledge he could save the entire kingdom. Amid 30 years' war, steganography was not anymore only a pleasurable pastime of a noble, but a matter of life and death for many, and Kircher, throughout his career, obviously gained a reputation of an expert on coding. In 1665, Marci sent to Kircher a very special manuscript, which he writes was given to him by a friend and cannot be read by anyone other than Kircher. This friend once asked Kircher's opinion, but did not want to send the book itself, and put all his efforts into deciphering it. He did not give up until his death, but in vain, as such a book can only be deciphered by Kircher. And now he sends it to him. Finally, for the first time in 1666, and then again in 1667, on behalf of a sick friend, Marci, Gottfried Alois Skinner begs Kircher to comment on the cryptic treatise. It is now clear that Kircher did not live up to hopes placed in him by Marci, nor did anyone else. The until today undeciphered Voynich manuscript is without doubt the most enigmatic paper that traveled between Prague and Rome in this time. Paper which arrival to Rome was an embodiment of an existence of a closely knit scholarly network in the Czech lands, as well as its close correspondence and personal ties to the Roman oraculum Athanasius Kircher. Thank you for your attention.